I think that people are going to turn more and more towards thrifting, estate sales. Reselling is sort of this, it's been a growing sort of economy for people as sort of a side hustle or even a main hustle lately. And, estate sales and reselling are, hand in hand, right? We are supporting each other's businesses a lot of times with that. But I think all of that, with the way the market has been going, obviously it's a tough economy right now. People are not thrilled about going to the grocery store or the gas pump, and they're looking at other ways to save money. And thrifting is a great way to do that. So estate sales are a big deal for people who are looking just to, economize, but also for, again, people who are looking at reselling as maybe a way to make a little extra money on the side. That's where you find those great bargains. You find those really unique treasures that you can flip online and make a little bit of money off of that. So I think just the economy, the way it's been going, it actually does position us in a good way over the next several years, or at least the trend is moving that way.
Welcome back to Deep Current, the podcast where you go beneath the surface with business leaders to explore the decisions, challenges, and innovations shaping their industries. Today's guest is Marcel Sirois. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Perfect. Owner and franchise of Blue Moon Estate Sales of Metro Tampa Central. So Marcel brings a background on business operations, management, customer relations, small business ownership to an industry that sits at a unique intersection. Part retail, part logistics, part valuation, and very much a people business, right? Her team helps families navigate significant life transitions, including downsizing, relocating, and respectfully rehoming the belongings of a loved one. So Marcel, welcome to Deep Current. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Andy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, for sure. So before we go into estate sales per se, tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what ultimately led you to ownership and Blue Moon.
Sure. So I actually have over 20 years in business. So either corporate level management or even running a small business, kind of leading up to the time where I thought about finally launching for myself and a little bit of business ownership on my own terms. And so I started kind of scouting around for what might be a good opportunity for me. Franchising seemed to be, it felt like a good fit for me. I really felt like I loved the idea of having that backing of the franchise, the branding, the marketing effort was already sort of the way was paved already, right? And that was certainly very helpful. And so I was looking at different franchise opportunities. And then I kind of stumbled across this estate sales business model, which really, in truth, I had never been to an estate sale before. So this was a brand new thing for me to investigate and find out about. And quite frankly, it ended up being just an absolute joy. I went into it because it really checked a few boxes of things that I was looking for in terms of being a business owner and sort of what the business model would entail. I really wanted to get out into the community. I wanted to be working with people a lot closer than I was sort of in my remote office from home, in the early days of what I had been doing. So that obviously, this model, I am out in the community. I am working with families. I am working with the neighborhood and the community. We're putting on events and working with lots of people, different people every week in different locations in the area every week. So it brought a lot more to the table than I had expected. But it's, like I said, it a great win on a lot of levels for me.
It sounds great. Yeah. And was there a moment when you realized like this is the right opportunity?
There were a lot of things about it going in that certainly felt right. You're always kind of just putting your thumb in the air and hoping that you're reading the tea leaves correctly. But, I think it's fulfilled a lot of the things I was hoping for and then some. So, I think over the first year, it was a real surprise for me, right? Like, what is this estate sale business? And really kind of plugging into the excitement around it. I hadn't thought of these sales as events per se until we started doing them regularly. And you start to see like people are excited about this. They line up on day one. They're ready to come in. They want to see what you've got. They're going to come back a few times. When you have a great sale happening and people just they're excited. They're coming back. Like, you've got the same people on day one in line to get in as you've got on day 3. to get in. So you start to realize that this is more than just, opening your door up for a garage sale or something. Like people really get into it. We do work with a lot of resellers. We also work with a lot of collectors on their own right and just people who are avid thrifters and shoppers. So, there's a lot of reasons why people get into it. But, as you start to tune into that, it becomes like eye opening in terms of, wow, I really hit on something I didn't expect. And that's what it became really exciting for me. It wasn't just that we were able to help the client or the family, the estate to kind of liquidate and move on to the next step. Certainly we are doing that. But at the other end of things, we're also putting on this great event for the community and people are really excited about it.
Great, for sure. And prior to this, you had experience in operations, management, customer relations. Which of those skills has proven to be most valuable as an owner? And which did you have to learn from scratch?
That's a great question. I would say that client facing was probably the best experience that I have leveraged in this new opportunity for me. So I think, it's really about how to interact with people, how to be flexible with different people's needs, meet people where they are. Every family is different. It's not one size fits all. And what we do isn't one size fits all. It's really about what is that client, what is the family really needing and what can we do to best help their situation in that moment. So again, just being able to really work with people and communicate and engage that way and understand. I guess maybe project management goes hand in hand with that as well. I have a lot of project management under my belt, and that helps us put on a very efficient week to week process, whatever it is that we're trying to fulfill, those goals and how we do it, those objectives, the strategy behind it, all the meeting the timelines, all of that stuff kind of does go on full display each week when we kind of start it project. So I think those two things really go hand in hand.
Fantastic. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let me see if I understand the estate sale business a little bit more. So for someone who's never experienced a professionally managed estate sale, what actually happens from the first consultation through the final?
So the first consultation usually happens weeks before the sale actually takes place. People will call us at different stages. Sometimes they're kind of at the very early stage where they're thinking about down the line, they're going to have to put this house up for sale in the market. And how do they get to that point? So they're still investigating a lot of the different moving parts that go into this process. Sometimes they call us and it's like, I need this done. I've got a buyer for my house. In 2 weeks we close. Can you help us? But usually people are a little bit, ahead of that. So, we're usually going into the house. We assess the house for how much is there. It's really about volume. A lot of people think it's about value. They're like, I don't really have anything that's, brand name, or I don't have gold and silver jewelry. I don't have china. I don't have. So, just to clarify, all those things are nice if you have them, but ultimately it's about volume. People really love to see a full house, that there's going to be a lot of things to discover. That's part of the hunt, right? Thrifter's dream is about the hunt for the treasures. So we like to see that, but it also sets us up to understand how much work is going to be there. I mean, these really are, even in a small house, it can be a lot of work. If people have lived in the home for 40 years sometimes, there's a lot to unpack in that house, and we will go through everything. So when we hit the ground running the week of that sale for setup, so we go into the house at the early part of the week and start our process. We're going to open up all the cupboards, closets. We're going to take bins and boxes out. We're going to take everything out and sort everything. Anything that we find of value that we can sell, we're going to isolate that for our sale. Anything that's not sellable, we will get rid of it altogether, return it to the family or the estate, whichever makes sense to do. We then go through a very arduous process, I would say, of photographing everything. And sometimes that's less than ideal conditions. So I usually photograph multiple times. We put all of those photographs online for our advertising. And that's what gets people excited, right? We know that there are a couple of different sites where they're going to go every week. They're going to look for their sales. They're going to figure out which sales they are going to prioritize. We want them to prioritize ours. So I want the best photos of our key items out there. So I'm often doing that refresh of advertising photos through the whole week right up until sale day. But we put all of that up online and we also stage everything. We're really trying to create like a mini retail pop-up environment, right? We want it to be like a Nordstrom when you walk in with our tables, our black tablecloths, our branding, our signage, and with everything really organized. I think one of the key things I always hear from our customers that differentiates us and sets us apart is how organized our estate sales are. A lot of times you'll walk into one and it's hard to find things. They aren't clearly labeled or things are just kind of randomly set in different places throughout the house. But we really like to give it some logic and really set up what makes sense for traffic flow, where our key items are going to be displayed and that people can find them in sort of intuitively. Like, if I'm looking for clothes, well, the bedroom and the master closet might be the best place to go search for those. So that kind of concept. And then we hit the ground running on usually Friday. Friday is usually our first day of a sale. We usually do a 3-day over the weekend. And like I said, we open those doors. We usually have a line ready to come in. So there's a lot of excitement around it. And we like to just keep cycling through people through the sale through 3 full days. So a lot of energy. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, it is a big event that kind of culminates the end of that sale. And then for the clients, after the sale is over, they get a full report out of our POS. We have a full register that has full capability to report out what we sold for how much. And so there's transparency in all of that for them. And to wrap it all up with sort of the proceeds check within a few short days. So that's kind of the end-to-end process. A lot of times we will also work with different providers who can come in and do a full clear out or a full cleaning of that house, really make it ready for the realtor to come in, take possession of that house, stage it, photograph it, list it, and then start to do their own open houses in there.
Great. That sounds very interesting. It sounds like a lot of work. Where does the most preparation time go?
Usually it's in the very early stages of sorting everything. When I walk into a house during the assessment, that's really what I'm looking for is how much work is going to be here just to get things out to know what we have. A lot of sales when you have a really packed house, and I will say some of our best sales really, when you have a really packed house, you don't see everything even until the sale itself because you really can only pull out so much that you can display effectively. And then through the sale, as we start to thin out on day one, we'll start pulling more things out. And oftentimes those treasure hunters are our customers are the ones finding things. They're like, I found this thing out in the backyard, or is it for sale? And I'll be pricing things on the fly. Like we don't always see everything. And like I said, some of those are our best sales. You just know you've got a winner when customers are bringing things to you at the register that you didn't even know you had.
Of course. And is there something that families usually underestimate when coming into this type of events?
In terms of how much work is, I think there's a mix of people. A lot of times it's something that they can do themselves and they kind of start the process and realize, wait, I've got a full-time job and a family of my own. Like, when am I really going to be able to tackle this? And that's when it kind of dawns on them that maybe they need some professional help with it. And some people, it is pretty straightforward. A lot of times we walk house and if you have somebody who was really meticulous with the things that they owned, they've got things on display. You already kind of walk in and things are organized a certain way aesthetically, and they might be spot on in terms of it's not a lot of that type of setup, but there's still quite a bit that goes into just photographing everything, pricing everything, the advertising, and of course, with our branding and our following, we get those people to the door. So that's another benefit of what we do and what we can bring to the table.
Very interesting. I love it. I'm thinking now about myself. I mean, I think it's not necessarily that you're moving out, but we tend to have so many things that we don't use. Doing like a large type sale like this for your house will be amazing for us cleanup, and yeah, it will be amazing to do. But yeah, that's a different topic. People may think that this is like a larger garage sale, but in reality, it's like a temporary retail operation. You said it yourself. You want to set it up like a Nordstrom. So, what separates a professionally managed sale from an improvised one?
Great question. So I'll start with just the fact that the estate sale industry is not regulated. So right out of the gate, not everybody who advertises themselves as an estate sale company is licensed as a business, has insurance as a business, either liability or, any kind of workers' comp or any of those things. So I would suggest that anyone who's interested in hosting an estate sale is pretty diligent in, looking at who they're prospectively hiring to do that. We are inviting hundreds of people onto the property, right? So you want us to be insured and professional and know how to handle those types of circumstances. But certainly we are also, I think for us, just Blue Moon in general, what really separates us more than just the branding and the recognition nationally that, we are a national franchise, but really it's about we are organized. We know exactly how to set the stage in terms of a path flow for traffic. It's not just about pulling everything out of cabinets. You have to make sure that you can accommodate a pathway for people to walk through that makes sense, that you have enough room to accommodate people, that you have a place for your register, that you have a holding table, that all these things that go into sort of your floor plan when you get going. We want to make sure that we have a plan around exits and an exit strategy, how to man all the rooms to make sure that we are present for those customers, to support them, to help them with questions, to help them find things. We're also keeping an eye out. Very few people are sticky fingers at our sales, but every now and then you've got to, have an eagle eye on things. Uh, Really just all the things that go into keeping people engaged and shopping. You definitely want to be present and helpful and keep their energy going.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, it sounds, I mean, I always think about a garage sale, right? Like a domestic one, and it's a headache for me. So this makes it simple. Not simple, but at least it operationally smooth, I think. That's great.
Yes.
So how much difference can staging and presentation make in general?
A huge difference. First of all, if people can't see it, they're not going to buy it, right? You have to have it out. One of the first things that we look at when we walk in on day one is, are things up too high? Sometimes people have these nice, they're beautiful, but you've got a high ledge maybe with some decorative items on display. That's great, but shoppers aren't looking up as they're walking around. And if they do look up, they may not go any further than that. We're not going to, have people getting up on a ladder and trying to pull things down during the sale. We're pulling all of those things into sight. Again, with cupboards and cabinets, a lot of times it does make sense to just display things in the kitchen right in the cabinet where they are normally stashed and with doors open. But again, people aren't kind of going down to the lower cabinets. They aren't looking into the back of cabinets. You have to have things that are right up at the front to be seen if things are poorly lit. Photographs are a great example of this too. A lot of times when I look at estate sale advertisements with photographs that are just dark and cluttered and you can't really see what's there. If I were trying to map out my weekend and I was thinking about which sales I want to hit, I'm probably going to glaze right over that advertisement because I can't really tell what anything is. So, again, I know that's a challenge in our own process flow. So I'm always trying to update my photos with better photos all the way up to sale day to make sure that we're giving people the best view and idea of what we have. And certainly that makes a huge, huge difference. I mean, if you see a great photo of something that's maybe not that valuable, it still looks enticing. It gets people interested in what you've got. And likewise, if you have a crappy photo of something that's probably, stunning in person, if it's well lit and you can really see what it is, people are going to glaze right over it and not even give it a second thought. So it's extremely important to have great lighting, great photos, a good organization plan, and everything be upfront and visible at eye level.
Very interesting. And how do you balance selling quickly with protecting the value of the items? I think it's complicated, right?
That is maybe my biggest challenge. We are always walking that line of, my first goal is to get the best profit for my client that I can. At the same time, an estate sale is really all about that deep discount, right? It's a short sale. So this is very different from the retail model. We are not pricing things like Nordstrom, even though we're trying to represent a little bit more like that in terms of the aesthetic, but we are not pricing like that. So we are offering a deep discount off of, big the fair market value of every item. And so this becomes tricky, right? I want to make sure that I'm pricing it fairly, make sure that the client is getting something off of their investment, but at the same time, we want to give our customers a great deal. So we do use AI technology. So Blue Moon has a proprietary version of an app called Valuable that we use, and it's AI driven. So we can take photographs of an item, multiple photographs of it, feed it into the tool, and it will give me all the comps it can find online of things that have sold that are just like it, either an exact match or something very, very similar. And it will give me a recommended price. And so then I can kind of take that and match it to what I also know about my market. Tampa, Florida is a very specific kind of market, and it's different from other markets in the nation. So, what we price something at here might be different from how it's priced in California or how it's priced in Chicago or how it's priced in the Northeast. So you just have to kind of know your market, your region, and your shoppers, right? I'll see something that may not be a big seller in one of those other cities I just named, and for my market, I might think, I definitely have buyers for this thing. So we can kind of work with some of our own knowledge there too and blend it. The AI tool, the app has saved us a ton of time and made things very efficient for us. So, I know there's a lot of ways that AI can really support small business owners, and that's definitely one of them. It's shaved hours and hours of time out of our regular process to be able to go out there and quickly identify what things are, what their fair market value really is, and then adjust that pricing accordingly. And then another thing we do, which is a little more about the sale model itself, we work off of that original price that we put a sticker price on everything. And we stick to that for the first day or two of the sale. On the last day of the sale, we go to half off everything. And our shoppers know that. So they're always coming back on that last day because they want to take advantage of that deep discount. But this is basically where we're trying to really just clear the house out. So to do the best job we can with that by volume, just clear as many things as we can. We knock everything down 50%. And from there, we certainly finagle bundles and bundle deals and things like that with our customers as well.
Great. And I can imagine there's also like a human side of the business because, I mean, not everyone is just selling their possessions. They may be downsizing or handling a parent's estate or going through a divorce or moving into assisted living. I mean, you never know, right? So, how do you earn trust when someone is experiencing that kind of transition?
I think that's again meeting your customer, your client where they are. We do work with all of those scenarios, and those are great examples of our primary client base, people who are relocating. A lot of times, they it may not be that you've inherited the house. It may not be an estate inheritance. It might be just your own. I have to downsize. I have to relocate quickly. I have to get my house up on the market. I can't take everything with me. Sometimes it is the estate. They've lost a loved one and they suddenly are faced with a property that they have to now manage, liquidate contents, getting the house on the market, selling it. Sometimes you're dealing with sometimes you're dealing with a family. Sometimes the family members are on the same page about how they want things done, and sometimes they're not. So you have a lot of these different scenarios, but I think the key thing there is to really be empathetic that no matter what brought them to us, there's an element of overwhelm or stress that's happening in that situation. Even if it's just for yourself and you're downsizing and you're relocating, that in itself is extremely stressful. So, we're coming in to try and help alleviate some of that stress, not make it harder. But certainly they are usually coming to us, they're approaching us because there's something that they have to deal with that they just know they need help with. And it's a stressful time.
Yeah, of course. And what is the most common emotional mistake that families make when deciding what to keep, sell, donate, or discard in general?
I don't think there's any mistakes about that. People oftentimes, that they have the best of intentions with things. And we do ask our clients to not be present during the week we're there. It does get emotional. They will see a lot of chaos before things get pretty and, set up right. And they'll also, have specific feelings and thoughts about how things should be priced. A lot of people price with their heart. And of course, we're not doing that. We're trying to thinking about these items, the sellability of these items, and really what's the fair price, what's the going price, what can we really get for it. So those are things that we know from experience, and that's again we're not We're not trying to do that with our hearts. And sometimes people think that things are worth more than what they really are in the going market. And the reality is that they may be worth more in terms of what you paid for it originally, or, what how you feel about it. But the thing is that it's really only worth what people are willing to spend on it. And so that's where our experience and sort of doing that diligence with comparables and figuring out what things are selling for in this current market, that's where it really becomes important. So we do ask clients to kind of just stay out of that process because it can be a tough time for them to see us pricing things and they may not agree with that. Usually they agree when it all comes down at the end, though.
Yeah.
Once they get the final results, they're usually pleased.
So the family's not there during staging, pricing, but what about the sale? Are they there or no?
We ask that they're not in the house for the whole period.
Okay,
We
interesting.
usually ask that they do not attend the sale, although sometimes they pop in just to check on things. And, I try to be flexible that with customers and clients because it's their home. Very hard to say like you have to just stay out of this whole process, right? But certainly I try to lay the ground rules around, look, we have the autonomy around the pricing and how we're going to execute the sale. And to think of it really as consignment in place, right? We're in their home, we're managing the sale of their things. And so it is hard to say, you shouldn't be here or have anything to do with this process at all. But the reality is that once you sign that agreement, we're coming in and we're advertising that we're selling these things. And so we really have to be able to produce that. Things can't be taken out of the sale after we've started our work. We're telling people this is what we have. So we have to have it on day one.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think one of the hardest parts of the business must be assigning the price to hundreds or even thousands of items, right? How do you determine what something is actually worth?
So, yeah, and that comes with a lot of experience. A lot of things from house to house are really the same, right? If I go into anyone's kitchen, it doesn't matter if you live in a $1.5 million mansion or you live in a 1,000 square foot bungalow. You've got dishes, you've got mugs, you've got a few small kitchen appliances. You may have some generic stand mixer versus a KitchenAid. Those two things are a little different, but for the most part, if I open your cabinet doors and see plates and mugs and Tupperware, everyone's got a Tupperware drawer. Those things are all pretty much the same from house to house. We'll put up a menu of pricing that just has some generic listing of things. That saves a ton of effort on our part, right? I mean, it's a couple bucks for these items, and we're not going to spend too much time or energy trying to rebuild something that's pretty accepted from sale to sale. But we will look at things that are unique of value, maybe a little different. There's usually something at every sale that one of us has never seen before. And we're going to have to dig in and do some research on just exactly what that is and where does it come from and how is it made. If we can't get a match anywhere, and that has happened, we might figure out what it is and what it does, but sometimes we can't get an exact match for a price. And so we'll evaluate it based on, how old does it look? What kind of material is it made from? Does it work? Does it function the way that it should? And essentially, we'll kind of look at all those different kinds of points to come to a reasonable price around it. And then I'll have customers who will come in and argue with me. And I'm open to their feedback too. A lot of these, like I said, are resellers in my area. And I know that they bring knowledge to the table as well. So there is no 100% right or wrong on these things. There is certainly room to negotiate.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, for sure. And and at the end of the day, I mean, do you think that what information matters most to decide? Is it rarity, condition, local demand, maybe the other sales that you mentioned in the past?
I don't know that there's one thing in particular that could make something enticing. Sometimes it's just the 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 style that it's in. I mean, for instance, in this area, mid-century modern, anything brings a crowd. And then there are areas of the country where I wouldn't expect people to show up if that's the key selling style in the estate sale. So in Tampa area, again, maybe antiques, like real antiques going back 200 years are less of something that people are seeking. And then there are areas of the Northeast where that's a really a big crowd draw. So, those types of things become, again, subjective according to your market, the market conditions, and the style that's sort of celebrated in those areas. It's really about knowing your market and knowing what your sellers or your buyers are looking for, and certainly having experts in those pockets. We definitely love to tap into people who have experience with different types of things. We have different collections at different sales. Sometimes we'll have people who have collected, I was going to say, we actually had a collection of clowns, for instance, in one house.
Well,
So this was like, an oddity, and people were not indifferent about it one way or another. Either people were excited about it or they were kind of like, creeped out by it. But in any case, they were still objects of a large collection. Some were worth a little more. Some actually had, specific names or markings on them that were important to note. And certainly we were able to comp quite a few exactly and find out if they came from a certain era, if they were made by a certain maker. And so some of those have a little more value. Some of them were just sort of generic. Um, they weren't made of anything special. They didn't have a mark on them. They maybe were made of plastic versus ceramic. So, you can kind of assess things on that merit as well, and kind of say, okay, it's probably nothing too valuable, and focus on some of the other more valuable pieces.
amazing. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you previously said that a estate sale cleared approximately $50,000 in a single weekend. If that's the case, what made that particular sale so successful?
So I have had sales that do that. And again, it comes down to, I always say it's volume. Now, a $50,000 sale, you definitely have some value in there, right? So, I had a sale, for instance, not that sale, but a different sale that was quite high, that the gentleman had a pretty significant fine art collection. And it was a great and easy layup for us because he bought most of it at auction. He had receipts, he had certificates of authenticity for everything. So for me to be able to appropriately price those for an estate sale, advertise them, and get a crowd in, I mean, it was an easy layup for me. It was just a gift in that sense. But that gentleman also had collections of everything you could imagine. He had books, he had pipes, he had religious, and he had all kinds of, not just artwork, he had jewelry, he had serving. I mean, just anything you can think of. His house was really one of those houses where we were literally pulling boxes out of the back of closets on the last day of the sale and going, we finally got to the back of the closet. Here's a whole new wave of stuff that we can sell. So those sales are usually gold mines just because they could keep going. We could have
Yeah,
probably had another 2, 3
that
days of selling for him.
that sounds like it wasn't 50K. It sounds like it was 200K. And very interesting. Wow. Okay. And you use Monetize, right? As Blue Moon, like, and it's a system for preparation, photography, research, everything. What has the technology? What has that technology changed for you operationally?
So
Or
much. I mean,
monetize is the word.
first of all, it makes everything more efficient in terms of our workflow. We save lots of labor hours doing that. I mean, my biggest expense, like most business owners, is labor, right? This is not, it's not like I can replace any of my crew with AI, but AI can come in and supplement a lot of the things we do to make it more efficient for us. I still take all my own photos, so that's still part of the process. But now I've got a technology that will help me identify things. So product identification, looking at comps online, looking at what's sold either on eBay or other auction sites or marketplace, or even just in a retail setting like a Target or a Walmart. So it really gives me all that information. It recommends a fair market value price for me and makes an argument for my market how I should price it. Sometimes I agree with it, and sometimes I don't agree with it, but I have the autonomy again to kind of overrule it and say, okay, I've heard what you've got, AI. I'm going to kind of negotiate it a little bit differently. But and sometimes it's just an easy layup, and you say, yep, that works for me, and you put that use the pricing that it offers you, as well as the description, the titles, all the product
Amazing.
identification. That
I
that
like it a
piece is
lot.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
that piece is absolutely huge.
And
Even
you
just our
mentioned,
register, which is all online, and of course we take charge and tap to pay and all of that. I mean, it makes it easy for shoppers and it makes it easy for our client. There's transparency and all of that for them. They will know at the end of the sale how much of their revenue came from their decor versus their kitchenware. So those kinds of things, I think that really helps reassure people that we're doing the best we can with pricing, getting them the best fair market value that we can. And, at that point, usually the bundled piece starts to come together for them so that it feels like it made sense as an entire liquidation process.
You mentioned something that for me is key. You said that you can overrule what the AI suggests, right? Where does human judgment is still irreplaceable?
So I think some of this boils down to, knowing your market, right? AI will learn your model over time. It learns about you as you go. I, for one, am a big fan of Chat GPT. I have a real relationship with it and it understands my business model. It understands how I like to talk to clients, how I like to present myself, what are the things that are important to me when I think about, how I want to propose a particular project. So, there's a lot it understands. And the more information I give it, the better it gets about results in terms of what it tells me and how to go about something. And that's the same with this app that we're using right now for pricing, right? It's still kind of learning about the market that we're in. We've been feeding it information with each sale and it's getting a little better, but it's still maybe a little bit on the high side for some of our shoppers on different items. Again, in my market, we're a little different than, say, a market up in the north where antiques are not as sought after. So I would price them a little bit lower to try and get them to move at a sale of mine here. If I did the same sale maybe in New York State, I might not price it a little bit lower, right? I might say, no, that's the right price for it. They're in demand here, and this is a really exciting piece for people who are interested in antique pieces. But, you just have to kind of know that and instinctively feel it out. I'm at all my sales behind the register. I typically, I've thought about, kind of letting other people take that role. But what I would lose from that is knowing exactly what my customers think about our pricing because that's where they find me to tell me all about it. Right. And they're my ear to the ground every time. If my customers aren't going to pay those prices, it doesn't matter what AI tells me, right? I need to know what our customers are looking for, how much they're really reasonably going to spend on certain things. And all of that is about experience. And that's the human piece that, being there, being at the register, being the one that is going to negotiate any deals with them and just paying attention over time. What are people buying? What are they excited about? What got them here? That feeds every sale that you do.
Amazing. And has technology eliminated a real bottleneck? I'm assuming yes, but since it removed one, did it move to another one? Like it did it backed up somewhere else?
Maybe a little bit. Sure, sure. I mean, those are kinks in the developing process, right? So, for instance, that the pricing tool that we've been using, it gives us all that we don't have to, go scour 3 or 4 sites or more to kind of find out the comps and what they've sold for and what it is and what it does. It kind of takes care of all of that on the front end. But every now and then it's wrong. And so, you kind of have to still do some diligence to make sure that, you don't just take it at face value, that you feel confident about what it's telling you. And so, we're still kind of mirroring our process a little bit to get to that comfort zone.
Interesting. And as a business owner, what information would you love to have at your fingertips that is so difficult to track today?
Wow. I would love to know how it correlates directly or indirectly with the real estate market. It definitely does, right? So when real estate market is kind of in a lull, our business is kind of in a lull. And at the same time, they aren't exactly a direct correlation either. So, it's not like every client of mine is putting their house on the market or has a closing date or, they're all at different places in their process or what their goal is ultimately trying to get to. But there definitely is a correlation between it. And not every person who calls me is even selling their house. Nonetheless, there's a correlation about how that all works. And I'd love to have better insight into that.
That's a great answer. So you have a referral program, right? It includes realtors, estate attorneys, fiduciaries, senior living professionals, organizers, companies, moving companies, everything. Which partnership has been the most important in growing the business?
Clients and customers.
No, really. Okay.
100 I've certainly had great relationships. I've had realtors who called me and needed help. We've worked with estate attorneys and, a number of different people in that mix, to your point. We've brought a lot of business to our mover partners, moving companies and clear out companies. So a lot of those, absolutely those referral relationships are really important to us as well as to a lot of our partners. But at the end of the day, the majority of my business comes from word of mouth, from my customers who shop our sales to clients that I've worked with in the past. And that's an unusual one, really. The clients, we don't have a lot of repeat clients, right? This is not a business model that people tend to do several hundred times in their life, right? They're doing it once or twice, maybe. So, we certainly have had a few clients who have gone through it more than once with us. But for the most part, we get a client, we probably do the one sale for them. They probably never do another estate sale, but they tell other family members, they tell their friends. And so I do get quite a bit of that. A lot of times we have a sale in a particular neighborhood. And then the next thing I know, I get somebody who's interested in having an estate sale. And they said, oh, yeah, I was at that sale you did in that neighborhood last month. And so those relationships are really where you're demonstrating, come in and see it firsthand, and it dawns on them, this is a great solution. This could be something that I need, and maybe not now, but in the future. I give out my business card more at sales than anywhere else.
Makes sense. And what is currently the biggest constraint on growth, if you have any? Awareness, lead generation, staffing, training?
I think it's awareness, really. I think that there's just really at this point a lot of people who have never heard of estate sales or don't really know what it is, or they think, it's just sort of another version of a garage sale. I think there's a lot of people who don't realize, all the things that we can do as part of what we do. It's more than just, selling the stuff out of your kitchen. We also can do the whole piece of, helping you prepare for a move or a transition of any kind, be that your own or family members. We can liquidate the contents of the house, or we can help you. Kate, we can pack things for you. We can come up with a floor plan in your new home. We can make sure that the things that you're taking are planning to take, measure, and fit into that new space. We can organize the moving company. We can receive those things on the other end and set everything up for you. So there's a lot that goes into what we can do that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And educating them is really my biggest, like, how can I do that in a broad forum and really get the educational piece out there to people about, all the things that we do it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. I think I said that earlier. It's really about meeting you where you are and what your current needs are.
Makes total sense. Yeah. And to be honest, just talking to you, I'm like, I want this. I want this now. So it makes a lot of sense. What has this business taught you about leadership that you could not have learned working for someone?
It's all about your team. It's 100% about your team. As much as we talk about, and we're grateful for all of the AI intervention and the things it does for us, I would be nothing without my crew. And I absolutely say that I went through quite a few crew members where, it wasn't a great fit. It didn't work out for whatever reason. And this is a bit of a tough industry. We don't always have consistent hours. It's, each sale is big or smaller. So sometimes those hours fluctuate. We're in a different location every week. So sometimes that's not always great for your teammates. But ultimately, if you can get a core group of people who buy into it, who are excited about the business model themselves, who are honest and hardworking, and really just genuinely there with an excitement about what we're doing and about helping people. And that's what I have right now. So right at this moment, I am blessed with a crew that I highly rely on, and they're always there for me. And, they do a fantastic job. I hear more compliments about my crew than anything else, and they deserve it. Absolutely. Because again, I can plan it till doomsday. It doesn't matter what I plan if I don't have the people to execute it and execute it well and in a way that our customers recognize as helpful and value adding, and that they come back every time because they remember. They remember who helped them last time, and they're excited about seeing us again.
Person, that's definitely a blessing, right? Having a right crew that you can trust, I think that's makes a huge difference. And looking ahead 3 to 5 years, maybe, how you think technology, changing demographics, and consumer attitudes towards secondhand goods will reshape estate sales?
I think that people are going to turn more and more towards thrifting, estate sales. Reselling is sort of it's been a growing sort of economy for people as sort of a side hustle or even a main hustle lately. And, estate sales and reselling are hand in hand, right? We are supporting each other's businesses a lot of times with that. But I think all of that, with the way the market has been going, obviously it's a tough economy right now. People are not thrilled about going to the grocery store or the gas pump, and they're looking at other ways to save money. And thrifting is a great way to do that. So estate sales are a big deal for people who are looking just to, economize, but also for, again, people who are looking at reselling as maybe a way to make a little extra money on the side. That's where you find those great bargains. You find those really unique treasures that you can flip online and make a little bit of money off of that. So I think just the economy, the way it's been going, it actually does position us in a good way over the next several years, or at least the trend is moving that way.
Love it. What are you personally trying to build next? It's either for the company, or your team, or yourself.
So I'm actually talking to the franchise right now, exploring ways to scale our footprint. So we are thinking about expanding our territory footprint in the Tampa area. So that's very exciting. That's really all I want to say about it at the moment because it's still too fresh in the discussion. But that's really my next move. I would really like to be doing multiple sales per week, right? I'd love to have two at a time and have a couple of core groups of people who could kind of spread throughout the area. I think there's a demand for it in this area. There's certainly been sort of a lull in good estate sales lately. Our customers have commented on that too. They're out there looking for what to do this weekend, and it's been a little bit dry. But I certainly don't feel like it's because there aren't people needing the service. And again, that all goes back to education, getting the word out about what we do, and just really bringing it to the table so people can understand that it is a solution for people, whether they have. I think sometimes people think I don't have an estate, like I don't have a lot of big valuable. I don't have a big valuable art collection or a lot of things like that. But it's not about that. It's about really a home and all the things that inhabit a home and fill out a home. And sometimes people don't really even realize the value in their own home. There's usually a lot more than they think that there is.
Yeah. All right. And I totally agree. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I lived south of Tampa a couple of years ago. And I remember that there was a garage sales all over, probably informal ones. And there's people that I remember, friends of my, colleagues of mine said, "Hey, we went to Siesta Key for a garage sale, and we found this incredible thing or whatever." So yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and I think people like thrifting sometimes, and if they can find like a solid market for it, and I think with a company like yours, they can, they'll probably be doing it more. So yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So I like to finish with a quick lightning round. Okay, short answers, at least in theory. The first thing that comes to mind. Okay. So what's the most surprising item you have ever found in a home?
As of Medusa Rosenthal China.
Wow. Okay. One item people throw away that they should always check first.
Say clothing. People tend to try and get rid of all their clothing before we get there, thinking that we can't sell it. We can. We can sell pretty much anything at an estate sale. So don't throw away or give away or donate until we come in and kind of given it our first pass.
Okay, that's good. The hardest category of item to price.
Anything silver, be it jewelry or other things, because really you have fine silver, you've got sterling, you've got silver plate, you've got, just stainless, anything that you can think of there in the mix. You have to look at markings. You have to understand the value in your market. Is it really just worth the meltdown price, or is somebody going to buy it for the value of what it is? And those can be a lot of tricky questions.
Perfect. And I think I know the answer to this next question, but I want you to answer too. Vintage treasure or modern convenience?
Sure, which way you want me to? Am I picking one of my preference?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is best in terms of pricing or for the sale?
Vintage treasure is harder to price than modern convenience, but vintage treasure is, I think that's where the fun is. That's what gets people excited.
That was what I was aiming
Got it.
at. So yeah, I think so. I think so too. The best bargain you have personally found at an estate sale.
I found a lot of things at estate sales that were good bargains. I hate to say that, it's usually when you get to the discount day, but usually the things I find that I really want, you have to buy them at full price if you want them to still be there.
Mhm, makes sense. One quality every entrepreneur needs?
Flexibility.
Flexibility.
And an ability to kind of do an eagle eye on everything. I mean, I think one of the things that I've always leaned into myself is that as the project manager for a lot of my career, I can see the big picture of things, and you have to be able to get out of the weeds and looking at the minutia of things, step back and see the big picture and how things fit together.
Yeah, it makes sense. One misconception about estate sales you would eliminate forever.
We're not a garage sale. This is not about bargain basement stuff. Again, we're handling somebody's life's collection, right? And we really are obligated to try and get them a profit for that, right? In their particular circumstance and transition. At the same time, yes, we are trying to create a great discount and a great incentive for our shoppers to come and buy armfuls of things, right? We want to see them buying lots and lots of things.
Okay. Last but not least, what does success mean to you today?
Being really excited about what I'm doing every day. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, that comes with momentum, that we're busy and, whether things are always going well or maybe they're not going so well at that time. But if you're still moving, you're still staying active, that momentum kind of carries you to the next thing and the next thing and keeps it fresh and exciting. And that's one of the things I do love about this business model. Every week is different. Every sale is different. Every client is different. Every collection. We learn something every sale we do, and it just keeps it all fun, fresh, exciting, and again, you keep that momentum going.
Love it. I'm going to add one more question. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the company or the industry tomorrow, what would that be?
I I'm not trying to pitch regulation too much, but I would like to see more consistency in the industry. I do feel like there's some shady participants that, it gives the rest of us a bad name. So I would like to see less of that.
Perfect. I like that answer. So, Marcel, before we close, where can people learn more about Blue Moon Estate Sales of Metro Tampa Central or connect with you directly?
On our website, bluemoonestatesales.com, on Facebook, looking for Metro Tampa Central. When you go on there, we are not yet on Insta or TikTok, although we've put some of our advertisements out there with great aplomb. So you can kind of find us out there.
Great. So, thank you for joining us and for giving us a look behind the scenes of an industry that combines entrepreneurship, technology, retail strategy, and an incredible amount of human trust, I think. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on Deep Currents. If you enjoyed today's conversation, follow us, follow the show in general on YouTube and Spotify, and share this episode with someone who would find it very valuable and interesting. So until next time, keep asking the questions that take you beneath the surface. Marcel, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Andy. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun to me too. I mean, I learned a lot. It was enlightening for me. So thank you. Have a good one, everybody. Bye bye.